In a world gone mad, only one man, okay, maybe more, had the courage to ramble on incoherently. The show is up and the reviews are in. This is the show that many people have described as good. Uninterrupted, Wednesday nights on Tag TV. We're good? Okay. In a world gone mad, only one man, okay, maybe more, had the courage to ramble on incoherently. The show is up and the reviews are in. This is the show that many people have described as good. Uninterrupted, Wednesday nights on Tag TV. We're good? Okay. Welcome. All right, we have a long show to get through. Our top story is going to be the Liberal government is doing its favorite activity, which would be sending your tax dollars to terrorists because it's 2015 or whatever the current year is. Plus, it's a climate emergency. We're all going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. Your kids are going to die. They're all going to die soon. 12 minutes, 12 years, 12 hours. Who knows? Just panic. Panic, but before you realize the only way to stop it, well, we can't even stop it. Give all your money and all power to Catherine McKenna, because if you don't, we're all going to die. And if you do, presumably we'll all live to be infinity. Plus, acid attacks. They start to hit the streets of Canada. We will talk about that. And the left makes a complete fool of itself, bending head over heels to defend AOC's dumb tweets on concentration camps. We have to go over everything because the world is stupid. Apparently, everything is like the Holocaust, except for genocidal antisemitism. Who knew? I did. Plus, tensions mount in Iran as Trump actually takes a hardline stance against the Iranians. People are saying we're pushing towards war. I will explain why we're actually getting further away from war with the Iranians than we were in Obama's tenure. Oh, there's so much to go over. What else do we have to miss? Toronto, the city council completely messes up the parade. You'll hear my views on that. And if we have time, I'll talk about bomb threats and possibly the straight pride parade. All right, let us get into the meat of the issue. The federal government is funding more terrorism. Why? Because a terrorist is a terrorist is a terrorist is a Canadian. This tends to be the central theme of the Liberal Party. Justin Trudeau, he has fulfilled two campaign promises. All right? One, he promised that he would legalize marijuana. He screwed that up, and it's still stupid. But he did legalize marijuana. Two, he promised that he will get Canadian citizenship to convicted terrorists, and he has done that. And on the same vein, terrorism funding seems like it's open season in Canada. So, what happened? The ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, has received more than $25,000 for the Summer Jobs Program. Now, this is the very controversial program that you heard a lot about last year, because what they did is they changed the rules. They now said you have to sign, right? This is INSOC, I mean the Liberal government. You have to sign a pledge saying, I am fully in favor of unlimited abortions all the time, on demand, for any reason whatsoever. You know, pro-choice to max. I'm not just pro-choice, I'm pro-abortion. In fact, I will punch a fetus right now. Right, if you didn't sign that, you cannot get summer jobs funding. Right, that's the line in the sand of Canadian values, is being so completely pro-abortion all the time, even though it's a 50-50 proposition in a lot of people. Okay, more 60-40 in Canada, but fine. Apparently, what is not required for Canadian values is terrorism funding. Apparently that's a normal part of everyday Canadian life. When Sir John A. Macdonald chugged a bottle of maple syrup and then sent $25,000 to a Pakistani terrorist organization. Because why not? Because it's 20 whatever. Okay, so what happened here? The ISNA has received its third terrorism funding violation since 2013. And this is from they were hit by the CRA. Their charitable status was revoked by the CRA. That is the federal government apparatus arm. It has labeled them as terrorism funders, and they are no longer a charity, right? If you give money to the ISNA, you cannot get a tax receipt from it because they are likely to send money to terrorism. And actually, that is against the law. Despite what you might believe, it is actually illegal to fund terrorism in Canada. Highly applauded by the federal government, but illegal. How that works. So the ISNA, which is not in favor of abortion in all their literature, but says so when they sign it, but yeah, sure, give us money, because we need to, infiltrate the Liberal government. They are getting more than $25,000 for the summer jobs program. Remember, Bible camps cannot get that money. Christian homeless shelters cannot get that money because they said, sorry, we can't morally sign a piece of paper saying we like punching fetuses in the face. But the ISNA, which is not pro-abortion, not even pro anything really that you like, they're getting it. Now, if you've heard the ISNA, you might be watching this program recently. So what is the Islamic Society of North America? You might recognize the name of one of its co-founders, a man named Siraj Wahhaj. Siraj Wahhaj, he tends to talk about that guy a lot. Was he just in the news? Yes, Siraj Wahhaj was in the news, but we're talking about Siraj Wahhaj Sr. You might be referring to Siraj Wahhaj Jr. They actually don't use Senior and Junior, so it's just super confusing, but I will. So Junior, now, one thing I'm against is terrorist training camps. Shocking, I know. Some of you are unsubscribing right now. But before you back away from this anti-terrorist training camp wacko, you remember the terrorist training camp in New Mexico where Siraj Wahhaj was the leader of it. He kidnapped his own son who suffered from epilepsy. He didn't take his epilepsy medication, and the cure for epilepsy was some sort of demonic, they tried to pray the demons away in some sort of weird Islamic ritual. Turns out weird Islamic rituals are not as good as stopping seizures as seizure medicine. Who knew? Who knew? Happens to the best of us. Listen, if I had a nickel for every time I kidnapped my son and killed him in a weird Islamic ritual, well, I wouldn't have any money because I never do that. But I know I have a lot of friends who, do that type of stuff. So the kid died. Now, they failed when they raided the camp. Kids were malnourished, and they were learning to commit school shootings as a form of jihad. Summer camp, some of us play flag football. I was a big fan of the flag football. Some of us learned to shoot up schools for jihad. Tomato, tomato. Diversity is our strength. Now, believe it or not, committing school shootings in the name of jihad is illegal. Yes, it's actually mass murder, believe it or not. That's a bad thing. Now, all the people implicated in this were related to Siraj Wahhaj, and his father, Siraj Wahhaj Sr., is a founder of the ISNA. He is someone who has said that the goal of Islam in going into politics is not to serve America, but to infiltrate and serve the Islamist cause. Now, the ISNA is clearly a Muslim Brotherhood front. We will get more into them in a bit, but that is what they stand for. They can say, well, that's just the American branch. He comes to Canada all the time to preach about jihad for the sharing the light conference. So, but no, that's the American branch. The ISNA Canada and ISNA America are two completely different things that share the exact same tax portfolio and headquarters. How about the ISNA director in Canada, a woman named Catherine Bullock? Sounds like a fancy name. She has a fancy title. She is a professor of political science at the University of Toronto, which used to be a school, believe it or not. Now, she is on video stating in a conference or a talk, which is quite hilariously about, ISIS and how it has nothing to do with Islam. She says, basically made the case that Canada is Islamophobic because we're basically defining regular Islam as ISIS. And one of the things that the Canadian government said that defines an Islamic radical, someone with ISIS ideology, says someone who wants to implement a strict Sharia law, someone who wants to establish a caliphate, that would be a country or an organization ruled by Sharia law under Islamic dominance, and someone who actively resists Western militaries to do so. And he says, well, this is a terrible definition, so Islamophobic, because most Muslims want a caliphate or Sharia law, and if you just happen to, then disagree with the American occupation, you just happen to be a terrorist. She says this twice in the video. Twice. She goes in, and she even says, she clarifies the second time, someone wants Orthodox Sharia law. This is, 4 wives, women are half of men, cut off the hands for stealing, stoning to death for adultery, stoning the homosexuals, or maybe throwing them off a roof. There's a debate in Islam. Very, very, very interesting debate. I'm sure many brain cells are being used up on that one. So someone who says, it's Islamophobic because there's nothing wrong, she literally says, there's nothing wrong with wanting a caliphate and Orthodox Sharia law. So there's nothing wrong with Muslims in Canada saying, no, we don't want Canadian society, we want a caliphate run under strict Sharia law. And if you disagree with that, that's just Islamophobic, because apparently to her that's what most Muslims want. This is the head of the Canadian ISNA, and if your kids are going to the University of Toronto, which again is a former school, Scarborough campus, you might be learning this, right? So these are the people on our side. Now, they just got their third terrorism violation since 2013. That is one terrorism that they're caught. They've been caught funding terrorism on average of once every 2 years. This year, they caught sending money into a Kashmiri Pakistani organization with known links to Jamaat al-Islami, where Iqra Khalid's father tends to hold a position, but we'll get back to that later. So they got their terrorism funding stripped. Their charitable status stripped. So the Canadian government says, no, you can't be a charity anymore because apparently it's 3 strikes and you're out on terrorism funding. I think 1 terrorism funding violation, but I regress. Now, the ISNA is actually a pretty big organization. It's not a fringe organization. Iqra Khalid, my best friend, me, her, and Linda Sarsour, hot tub parties all the time. They're wild. Iqra. All right. She kicked off her campaign in her own riding? No, not in her own riding. At the Canadian headquarters of the ISNA. Oh, wow. Wowie wow. Back then, to be fair, it only had 2 terrorism funding violations in 2 years when she did that. So it was just 2 terrorism funding in 2 years, not 3 terrorism funding in 6 years at the time. So to be fair to her, they only had 2 recent terrorism funding strikes, not 3, right? If an organization got 3 terrorism funding violations, Iqra Khalid would say, no, this is a bad thing. Actually, I'm looking, there is no condemnation of the ISNA from Iqra Khalid or Omar Al-Ghabra or Justin Trudeau. Funny how that works. Wow, isn't that strange? Isn't that strange? So these are the people getting Canadian taxpayer dollars to help hire the youth. Because of course we want to encourage our youth to go to an organization which funds terrorism and promotes Sharia law and fucking caliphates. It's not just, Islamic law, we want to live by Islamic principles of doing charity and washing our feet. Okay, I can live with that. Muslims, we want to wash our feet. Fine, I don't care, no one cares, wash your feet. Wash your hands too. Take a shower, great, whatever, who cares? No, we want to establish a caliphate. We want to knock down the House of Commons, put up a tent, and just run it by Qurans and Hadiths. We are enabling, no, not just enabling, we're supporting these organizations. We're literally giving them money. It's not enabling at this point, it's material support for terrorism. Is there no one checking this? There is someone checking. It's probably Iqra Khalid or Omar Al-Ghabra. Now, if I were Prime Minister, I would say, no, we're not funding terrorism. In fact, you get caught funding terrorism, we're shutting your organization down. Shut it down. No more ISNA. No more. Everyone on the executive board of the ISNA, you have to answer, go to court, because funding terrorism. And you can't sit on the board of a charity ever again. Labeled extremists. Boom. There you go. The ICNA, which the ICNA diverged from the ISNA because it didn't think the ISNA was radical enough. They've just been linked to Jamaat al-Islami as well. They're the ones who co-sponsor this Carrying the Light conference, which happens every year. Sometimes Linda Sarsour comes in. Sometimes Sirhaj Rahaj is there. Now, Sirhaj Rahaj, the founder of the ISNA, he is also an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. You know, reasonable people love blowing up the World Trade Center. It seems like a totally reasonable pastime for reasonable people. He was Linda Sarsour's favorite person in the room and her mentor. Oh, what a great web of wonderful people we have working at the ISNA. Stand-up humans. There you go. So don't worry, you will not be funding any Bible camps, but you will be funding caliphates, Orthodox Sharia law, and Pakistani terrorist organizations, because what's more Canadian than Pakistani terrorist organizations? At this point, I don't even think that's a joke. All right. Lateral move here. Acid attacks have now come to Toronto. We're officially hitting we're becoming more worldly, more multicultural, as they say. We have cultures which don't throw acid in the face of people, and cultures which do throw acid in the face of people. Remember, all cultures are exactly the same. That's why diversity is our strength. Now that we've said that, bypass the censors, here is what we need to. Here's just what needs to be said on the acid attacks. Okay? This is where the media can actually do something productive. Now, all the studies have shown for things like mass shootings, the media really shouldn't talk about the death count, like as a numbers game, and they shouldn't say the shooter's name. because it just encourages more of these things to happen, right? Because the people who commit mass shootings are demented individuals who are sort of committed to evil, want to be known for something, right? Disenfranchised losers with a, you know, like a nihilistic worldview, and they want to be like, you know, go and shoot the Batman. They just want to be, hey, look at me, right? I did this in this horribly myopic worldview. Now, for acid attacks, it works on a different axiom. Usually, acid attacks are some sort of honor-based violence, right? This girl doesn't want to marry me. I'm going to disfigure her for life. My wife wanted to divorce me because I beat her. I want to disfigure her for life. Right? This woman wore a skirt once. Disfigure her for life. Remember the honor killings in Kingston? The man and his son who drove his ex-wife and 2 daughters into the river and killed them. The justification for this is they were posting pictures of themselves on Facebook. Phew. Okay, here's how you stop this. You investigate. You make this a big deal, because the reason people throw acid on people's faces is so they're scarred. And I'm reading the headlines that's saying, oh, they're not life-threatening injuries. Okay, yes, they might not be life-threatening, but they're life-ruining because you're permanently disfigured, right? The axiom, mental axiom this works on is, I'm going to throw acid in your face, it might not kill you, but everyone will look at you and see the shame, right? This is a woman who tried to, who thought we were living in Canada in 2019. What a fool. Right, this is what happens to women who disobey their husband. This is a women who disobey their family. This is what happens to people who want to, you know, get away from this culture. And if you do nothing, and if you try and take the approach that they did in London, and grab shovel, dig hole, stick head in sand, which is the #1 form of Canadian activism these days, if you do that, it keeps that mental axiom alive, because in these communities, that's what the thing is. Oh, did you see what's-her-face? Right? Oh, why is she disfigured? Because she did this. And then the thing is, oh, don't do that because this might happen. Right? You have to flip this. You have to say, well, okay, when this happens, who did this? Go into the community. Find out, this is a suspect. Talk to the parents. Why was he raised? Are these his values? You go and you go and you go, and you actually make a big deal of this, because it changes the mental axiom, because then it's embarrassing. Then the person who did this, their family is embarrassed. Because then the next person who throws acid in his face, instead of saying, if I throw acid in her face, I'll get 5 months in prison because it's Canada, I'll get off in 3 months with good behavior, I'll make $10 million probably. No, for acid attacks, that's probably only worth like 5-6 million at best. Right? I'll make a couple $1 million, spend a few months in prison, I'll write a book, the Toronto Star will review it, it will be probably a generational piece on tolerance and love and whatever. Right? That's the current mental axiom. Throw acid in face, slap on the wrist from the Canadian government, everyone digs their head in the sand, and then in the community, because this is, right, the acid attacks are a symptom of balkanization of our society, and we'll get into that in a second. Right, inside that community, everyone else is like, oh, acid attacks, oh, in that community, you're going to hear, oh, acid attacks are a result of wearing skirts or whatever. Now, if you flip that where it's now, whenever there's an acid attack, Canadians get really, really upset, right? If I throw acid in someone's face, and they find out it's me, they're going to put my mother on TV, they're going to put my father on TV, it will embarrass my family name forever. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't throw acid in people's faces, right? Because it's an honor cultural thing. That's the proper way to respond to it, right? We can actually stop this before it gets started. So we just had one, there's an acid attack on a man, woman, and baby. This is the second acid attack in Toronto in a few months. And the reason why we're behind London is because the European multiculturalism was designed a lot worse than Canadian multiculturalism. Because Canada was actually quite good at doing this sort of integrating thing, because we were a nation of immigrants. We were able to sort of integrate cultures slowly. We all sort of understood that, yes, you could bring part of your culture here, but you're also in Canada, and Canadians would go to immigrant communities, say, hello, what's up, you can come live with me. There was cross-pollination. In Europe, the multiculturalism was always, oh, okay, we'll bring in the Pakistanis, but they'll be over here in Birmingham, and I'll be over here in regular London. Right? They're here. It's balkanized. This is starting to happen in Canada. We're getting more and more segregated from each other, the balkanization of cultures. A symptom of this will be acid attacks. Right? And it's not just Islamic cultures that do acid attacks, okay? Listen, it's not coming from Nova Scotians, but it's not purely an Islamic thing, right? This is an old world honor-based nonsense, because it's not designed to kill so much as maim and disfigure for life. Right? And then you see the media reporting, oh, not life-threatening injuries, so we can all look away, right? I don't have to deal with it. La 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 la. Head in the sand. Right? We can actually deal with this. We can cut this off. If you don't want acid in people's faces, which you probably don't, the way that you can do this is cover it. Go into the communities. Why is this happening? Well, what happens here? Right? Bring shame to the people who do it. Right? They've shamed their family. Instead of restoring honor to their family by disfiguring women, they've actually brought shame to it. Right? It's a very simple solution, but we won't do it because we're a bunch of moral cowards. So there's a solution to acid attacks. It's the mainstream media can actually do something productive. Right? If they love enabling mass shootings and acid attacks because they're feckless cowards. All right, if you tell, that was my very anti-acid in people's face stance on acid attacks. Note it down. Daniel says, don't disfigure women. All right, like the video, share the video, tell all your friends about us. Like the page. Every time you like the page, Ilhan Omar gets diarrhea. Okay. Let's talk about our next story. Let's keep it in Toronto. Now, Toronto Raptors won the NBA championship. I'm ecstatic. Thank you, Kawhi Leonard. It's great to finally see the city win something. Now, our parade was what scientists term a clusterfuck. It was, I don't want to say poorly planned because that would imply there was any planning. And this sort of reminded me of Chernobyl, the HBO series. If you haven't seen it, spoilers, Chernobyl it tells a story, right? Nuclear plant meltdown, and it's the Soviet Union. It's kind of what you expect. I didn't think it was as great as everyone else thought it was, but that's probably because I know something about the Soviet Union. But I was going to go to the parade because it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and then I heard the day before that the city of Toronto is expecting tens of thousands of people. And I'm like, you idiots, there's going to be millions. There's going to be millions of people at this parade. And I realized, yeah, it's gonna be stupid. I'll watch it on TV. So, if you saw Chernobyl, there's one point where they try and they get a robot from Germany to help clean up the radiation, but they don't tell the Germans the proper radiation numbers, and the diplomat gets mad and says, God damn it, they told them the propaganda number. And that was my reaction to the entire parade. They gave the police the propaganda number, and that was the Toronto City Council. They didn't have any barricades. They expected tens of thousands of people, so they didn't put extra washrooms. They didn't have police going up. Now, the story is there was a shooting at the parade, and the guy who was charged for attempted murder had just gotten off a double murder charge. That's not really the story to me. There are other stories. One, if you know Toronto City Council, and I have talked to these people, there is about 5 to 6 functioning neurons on the entire council combined. And about half of them were out of commission that day, apparently. There was no planning. They weren't even putting up barricades. They didn't have police here. But what kind of rinky-dink operation is this? At Nathan Phillips Square, the place where the parade is going on, there is a shooting in the back of it, and the Prime Minister, the Premier of the most populous province, and the Mayor of the most populous city are all in the face. And no one does anything about that? Like, no one pulled the Prime Minister off stage? Is this, what kind of rinky-dink operation is this? Right? If you know the Prime Minister is going to be somewhere, granted, if Justin Trudeau takes a bullet, I doubt anyone would be overly sad. I mean, the Liberal Party would be ecstatic, because then they could run Chrystia Freeland on, look, I'm a woman, and everyone's like, she's so competent. Remember when she said Trump was bad and screwed up NAFTA? But come on, I don't like the guy, but at least, have someone say, Mr. Prime Minister, at least send a bodyguard in front of him, show that, this actually matters. Because everyone's, sitting there, could you imagine in America that happening? You know the president's going to be somewhere, and then there's a shooting, and everyone's just like, whatever. What kind of Mickey Mouse operation is this? Yeah, so they didn't plan. They just said it's going to be tens of thousands of people, maybe 20,000, 40,000 people maximum. Why plan for something that's not going to happen? 2 million people showed up, because of course they would. And I'm happy I stayed home, because it was an absolute disaster. Okay, let's move on to the left and their new spokesperson, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who had some sort of, as people are terming it, drunk history with AOC, where she is comparing the detention centers for illegal immigrants to Nazi concentration camps. Right? She even says in a tweet, never forget, and then when people called her out on it, she said, oh no, I wasn't referring to the Holocaust, I was referring to the Boer War, where concentration camps first happened. Funny enough, that was actually Hitler's propaganda line. When people started talking about the camps, the Germans started saying, no, it's just like the Boer War, what the British did. By the way, if AOC can name the combatants in the Boer War, I'll join Hamas right now. And I'm so confident that she can't name the sides in the Boer War. I bet you she doesn't even know where it happened. South Africa. Anyways, so this is where the left is, right? Now, let me just explain. The difference between concentration camps and the ICE detention centers. There were Jews who were living in Germany, in Poland, in Belarus, in Hungary, all different places. When the Nazis took over, they took the Jews who were trying to run away from the Nazis, caught them, put them in concentration camps, and then sometimes sent them to death camps or extermination camps to die either by gas chambers, ovens, or hard labor. Okay? So we had people who wanted to leave the country because they were being oppressed, or just average citizens being forcibly detained by the government. The detention centers are people trying to get into the United States illegally, being stopped and held for processing. Some of them are being sent back to Mexico for asylum hearings. So there's a difference. Jews were running away from Nazis. They were being caught by the Nazis, then thrown in concentration camps for their eventual extermination. ICE is detaining illegal immigrants who are trying to get into the country illegally. And I've said this before, if you don't want to get detained, listen to this show. Go to any regular border crossing station and declare refugee status there. If you're saying, I'm a refugee, I need to get in the States, you can do it at any embassy or consulate or just at a normal boarding crossing station. You don't get detained if you do it that way. Then you're giving in a date. But the reason we detain people, or the ICE detains people, is when they try to sneak through and not do things legally. Then you say, oh, they might be drug smugglers, they might be cartel members. Again, everyone knows every illegal immigrant that comes to the States is all done through the cartels. The cartels run Mexico, right? The illegal immigration trade is purely run by the cartels. Now, because Obama changed the law, it used to be the number one people coming through illegally were single men just trying to work and then send money back to their family. Now, because Obama changed the laws, if you couldn't separate kids with their family, you start to have people either bring their families or drug smugglers taking children along that they'll either sell into sexual slavery or just use as a sort of camels to go in between, as like the sort of child that brings back and forth the border, so you would be caught and released. Right? There's a huge difference. Okay? So this is, now, Liz Cheney tried to show Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez this difference. And here's the dumbest tweet in the world. This is even dumber than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and this is Chris Cuomo, who has a show out of nepotism because his brother's governor. So let's show this tweet. So this is Liz Cheney. She's basically saying, hey, please, AOC, please learn some history. Jews were rounded up and then exterminated in Nazi death camp. This is not what's happening. And then Chris Cuomo jumps on, exterminated? We use that term for pests, not people. Cuomo, what are you talking about? They were called extermination camps. There was a final solution which talked about the extermination. Yes, we gas insects to death, not people. Which is what made the Holocaust so horrible, because 6 million Jews and 5 million ethnic minorities like Poles and gays and gypsies were gassed to death, like they were insects, in extermination camps. That's what makes it one of the greatest horrors in human history. Yad Vashem even calls it extermination camps. That's the Holocaust memorial. And thank God Yad Vashem actually went after AOC finally. Thank you for growing some balls, Jewish community, on this one. What absolute nonsense. Right? The lengths they go to defend the stupidity within their own ranks is quite astounding. Right? Oh, he's standing, right, Chris Cuomo, he's standing up for the Jews here, right? Because Liz Cheney is being anti-Semitic, saying they exterminated Jewish people. Now, did Chris Cuomo say anything about this? Let's see the next tweet here. This is from the same time frame. Here's John Cusack, the actor, 1.62 million Twitter followers. Here he is retweeting an alt-right anti-Semitic meme. Learn who rules over you to simply find out who you're not allowed to criticize. Isn't obvious? Then this is a Jewish hand crushing the people. And he says, follow the money, which means he looked at this, thought of a caption, and sent it out. His defense was, oh, I was just tweeting up for Palestinian human rights. Thank you, John Cusack, for one, noticing that most criticism of Israel is inherently anti-Semitic. Now, I'm not saying criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. I am saying Most people who criticize Israel in an anti-Semitic way that has nothing to do with reality. He's really just talking about Israel bombing Palestinian hospitals. Not saying the fact that most Palestinians actually get their health care in Israeli hospitals, the fact that Israel did not bomb a Palestinian hospital at any time. He says nothing about Gaza sending explosive balloons and rockets over to Israel. No. But he's fighting against fascism. How could he be an anti-Semite? He supports Bernie Sanders. Which is a very important point for the left. And this is why the left is so dangerous. And this is why left-wing Jews need to wake the fuck up right now. And every other race, too. It goes for blacks and browns. They don't care about any of you. And the reason why the left can get away with racism, anti-Semitism, and all that is because it's being taught, and it's taught in schools. Right? The left is anti-racist. Right? We're anti-racist. Therefore, we can do nothing wrong. My opinions are by definition not racism. I'm fighting racism. So it allows you to take these lazy anti-Semitic tropes, right? The Jews control us with the money. Right? The Jews control the world with their money. John Kuciak tweet that out. And he's not anti-Semitic because I'm against fascism. Right? Antifa. We're anti-fascist. That's why we use political violence against people who disagree with us. Because we're anti-fascist. That's why we use violence to stop ideas we don't like. Because then, if we aren't allowed to beat people up on the streets for disagreeing with us, then that just leads to fascism. Read a book. Read a book, Antifa. And this is the problem with the left. Is they can't be anti-Semitic because no, we support all different minorities. Inherently we support them. Right? That's why the blacks, they don't know what they're saying. They need our help. The Native Americans, look at them. We got to keep them in this, this failing reserve system because they need us. They need Papa leftism to look over at them. Aren't they so cute? Right? Everything's racist except me. Right? When you're literally told, and I've seen examples in Canadian schools where they say the left wing is about anti-racism, and the right wing is more racist. Like you see this in schools. So people say, oh, I'm on the left. I'm not racist, so I'm left. And then they can spew all this anti-Semitism and racist nonsense. Right? And then it can't be racism. Can't be anti-Semitic because I'm against it. I'm anti-racist. How can an anti-racist be racist? Right? How can an anti-fascist be pro-fascist? Call me a fascist? Well, I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to expose you. I'm going to send a mob of people to your house. I'm going to beat you up. Or else we're going to get to fascism. This is the dangers of it. And thank God the Jewish left is actually starting to do something. It's just insane. These people are insane. Right? No condemnation from anyone in the Democratic Party for John Cusack there. Right? Mel Gibson goes on an anti-Semitic tirade. People are like, oh, that's anti-Semitic. Yeah, it was. He then apologized, served his dues, come out, a bit more reformed. And that was in a drunken stupor. Mel Gibson gets drunk, rants about the Jews, fine. John Cusack sits there and says, ooh, anti-Semitic meme from alt-right institutions. Yes, follow the money because the Jews control us. Oh, how can I be anti-Semitic? I'm sorry you construed that as anti-Semitism. I didn't realize. Going to happen over and over and over again. All right, let's get to a more important issue, Iran. So a lot of people are going crazy on both sides over Trump and Iran. I am going to tell you that we are further away from war with Iran than we were in 2016. Okay? When Obama signed the Iran deal, the bill should have been called World War III in 20 years. Okay? He basically came home, waved in front of people, peace in our time. I think Barack Obama is the modern-day Neville Chamberlain. Right? I think he is arrogant and naive to the extreme. Now, you have to know what is in the Iran deal. Nothing for America, right? Anyone who's saying, oh, Trump took us towards war with Iran because he got out of the Iran deal. You're all fools, utter fools. You have to tell me what was good about the Iran deal. No one has ever been able to do that. So in the Iran deal, it basically states that in exchange for the lifting of sanctions on the Islamist regime, the Islamic Republic, so instead of giving them back the money and markets, they won't be able to get a nuke for about 20 years, and they won't be able to start developing the nuclear program for 10 years. So after 10 years of having money, right, if the Americans and the Europeans give Iran money, they won't develop nuclear weapons for 10 years, and then they can develop them in 10 years and not have the capacity to have a nuke for 20 years. Then, in 20 years, if they have a nuclear program, it says the Americans have to defend that from any attacks. So if they build the nuke and say, we're going to use this to destroy Israel, and Israel tries to destroy their nukes, America would have to intervene and stop Israel from taking out Iran's nuclear facilities. It's utterly insane. After the Iran deal came out, after it was signed, there was a billboard, an electronic billboard in Iran saying the destruction of Israel with a giant mushroom cloud, and it was a 20-year, it was an electronic countdown, and it expired the same year the Iran deal expired. What could their intentions be? Now, the reason why this is World War III is because giving them a nuclear program, the Saudis and the Gulf state allies are not going to want nuclear Iran, and neither is Israel. Right? We need peace. I've just said the real war in the Middle East is Sunni Shiite, not Israel-Palestine. Israel-Palestine is also kind of a proxy war between those states now. The Saudis and the Israelis. This is one good thing Obama did inadvertently, is he actually stopped the anti-Semitic Gulf states from going after Israel, because they realized, all right, the real problem is always Iran, because Iran is crazy, and they will try and destroy us. So capitulating to evil regimes never works. Right? Neville Chamberlain. Hey, we'll just give up the Sudetenland and that will stop Hitler. And then the next day, Hitler's in the rest of Czechoslovakia. Oopsie doodles. Right? Appeasement never works for evil regimes. It just emboldens them. You see this in Canada. Right? Stephen Harper shut down the Iranian embassy in Canada. Right? Said no to the Iranians. Right? Took a hardline stance with the Islamic Republic. Justin Trudeau ran on a campaign of opening up relations with the Islamic Republic. Now, what did they do when Justin Trudeau took power? Because Justin Trudeau said he's going to capitulate, he's going to try and normalize this radical regime, right? Even Ben Rhodes, who was pushing the Iran deal, who lied to the American public, came out later and said, yeah, we lied to the American people about the regime moderating in hopes that signing the Iran deal would moderate the regime. Right? We lied. He came out and said we lied. But now he's saying, Trump, Kaif Savis Imani, I believe it pronounced that right. He was a Canadian sociology professor. He's not a reformist. He's not a radical. He's just a random Iranian-Canadian professor. He went back to Iran with his wife to send a message to Canada. The Islamic Republic killed him and took his wife hostage because the Canadians were going to legitimize the regime. This is how crazyisms work. Because when you capitulate to them and say, okay, so you're weak. It doesn't take a lot to realize Justin Trudeau is a weak man. They say, oh, you're weak. So we're going to kill this Canadian. We're going to kidnap his wife and hold him until you give us more and more and more and more. Right? Now that Trump has taken a hardline stance, right? During the Obama years, Iran would chant, death to America, death to America. There's no death to America rallies on the streets of Tehran right now, because they know if they instigate this regime, this government, there's going to be consequences. Which is why Iran is tamping down their internal rhetoric, which brings us further from war. Right? And people are saying, oh, it's a false flag in the Gulf of Oman. No, it's not. This is what Iran says they're going to do. They go to their people, and this is a rah-rah propaganda point, because Iran needs some sort of war with America, kind of, not a full invasion. And I've always said, boots on the ground in Iran is a horrible idea. It's a giant country filled with 80 million people, and the majority of those people are now against the Islamic Republic, which is ruling over them. Sending boots on the ground only has a chance to galvanize the public actually against the Americans in some sort of nationalistic fervor. But if you're going to see some Iranian ships in the Gulf, right, you should patrol the Gulf and protect Western economic ties and world economic interests, that if you see the Iranian regime and the Iranian Navy causing havoc in the Gulf, fire on the Iranian Navy. Say no, they can't do this. It's not going to lead to a full-scale war, because the Iranians don't have the capability to fight one. And you put sanctions on them. I've always said, this is the reason we need sanctions. We don't need a war with Iran. We need reasonable people standing up to the evil republic and sanctioning them. I've said this, right? If they're going to be actively against Western interests, if they're actively against global interests outside of Iran, the way you stop them is you put sanctions on them. They were about to capitulate to sanctions the first time before Obama let them off the hook. Right? The internal propaganda has started to talk about capitulation, or as they call it, heroic flexibility. So this is a case for sanctions. And if you see Iranian ships causing havoc in the Gulf, stop them. Right? You send a force out there and you say, don't mess with us. This brings you further away from war. Right? The left is full of Neville Chamberlains. Oh, we just give up the Sudetenland and capitulate and do this and do this and do this and sign this deal and give them billions and send them on a plane and give them this. Everything Obama did made them more radical. Everything. Everything Trump is doing is making them less and less radical. The only reason why you're hearing more about, we might go to war with Iran, is because that's a narrative that the left and the media want to push, is that Trump is some evil warmonger. And Trump has openly said he doesn't want to go to war with Iran. That's a smart idea. Don't go to war with Iran. Put sanctions on them. Stop the regime. Stand up to them. Be like Winston Churchill, not Neville Chamberlain. Okay. Now all of this with Iran doesn't matter because we're all going to die. You're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die. You're all going to die from the climate emergency. It's an emergency. Woo, woo. So on Monday, there was a meeting for a climate emergency. Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau, who say it's an emergency. We're all going to die. We're going to die in 12 years. We're all going to die. Guys, don't even write a will. Because you're going to die tomorrow and you're going to die next week. And I'm not going to have a sound system because they're going to die. Why? Climate change. How? Hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, lightning, fire? Doesn't matter. We're all going to die. So, listen. I know you're panicking right now, and I just want to let you know, take a deep breath and then panic some more. Because you're going to die imminently from something or other. So again, global warming doesn't work, climate change doesn't work, it's now a climate emergency. And Maxime Bernier and the Conservative Party voted against this declaring of a climate emergency. And Catherine McKenna gets up there and says, they're not treating this seriously. We need politicians to treat climate change seriously. Then stop making a joke. Like, how is it treating it seriously? Just saying, we're all just going to vote, a bunch of parliamentarians are just going to vote calling it an emergency. And anyone who disagrees with its emergency and giving the state emergency powers isn't treating it seriously. Well, if we're going to treat climate change seriously, maybe hire a competent environment minister. Maybe that would be treating the environmental issues seriously. Instead, we have Climate Barbie flying from coast to coast every day, lecturing the plebs on their use of fossil fuels. Utter nonsense. Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh didn't even show up to the debate on the climate emergency because they'd rather be at a parade. Right? Justin Trudeau got up there and screamed at the crowd. Apparently that was right, because here's the level of emergency we're at. I said before, we're somewhere, it's above, this is, you're all going to die, give me your money, all right? And this is, ooh, a parade. We're somewhere in the middle of, we're all going to die, and ooh, parade. Okay, whatever that equilibrium is. All right, we're somewhere in the middle clearly. This is the liberal scale of climate policy. You're above, we're going to die, below, ooh, parade. This is why people don't take it seriously. This is why you have people with the sort of denialism around environmental issues. And I've said, listen, I don't take anyone seriously, any politician seriously when they start talking about climate change or global warming. Because I know they're just going to, it's nonsense policy that isn't going to do anything. If we want to talk about actual environmental issues, then I'll pay attention. Right? We need to talk about deforestation here. Canada's actually not a problem. We're actually doing a good job of reforestation. Right? We need to talk about, dumping raw sewage in lakes or in rivers. A bill that was signed by Catherine McKenna. Right? We can talk about that. If we talk about individual issues, we can talk about solutions. I'm more than willing to have that conversation. But not treating environmental issues seriously is just saying, it's an emergency, we're all going to die. Screaming into the heavens. That's not treating it seriously. That's making a joke of the whole thing. And it only encourages people to not take it seriously. Because you shouldn't take this government seriously. You really shouldn't. Nothing Catherine McKenna says should be taken with any sort of seriousness. It should all be treated as a complete histrionic joke, because she is a joke. All right. All right, let's get on to, we have some time for some more fun rants. Let's do straight pride, and then we'll talk about bomb threats, because there's some bomb threats in the city. But here's something I kind of want to get off my chest. Here's my opinion on the straight pride parade, and we're in Pride Month, and it's rainbow flags everywhere, and, banks are like, hey, we're TD Bank, and we're really gay. Everyone's like, cool, all right. And people are like, no, being gay can't be corporate. It's about fighting the power and this and this and this and this and this. And I said, no, being gay is about men wanting to have sexual relations with other men, and that's fine. And being a lesbian is women who want to have sex with other women, and that's fine. No one cares. Now, there's a big controversy because the gay pride parade used to be fun, and now it is a political tool. And there actually is a purpose to the Gay Pride Parade, and the Straight Pride Parade is sort of a silly thing. But how did we get to the Straight Pride Parade? Back in my day, in high school, the Gay Pride Parade was a fun event. You could go downstairs, people were having fun. It was like the straight white girls Super Bowl. They were all very excited. They were a bit tipsy. It was a good time. They had ribs there, so it smelled like barbecue. Some dude dressed up like Lady Gaga. He sang some songs. They tend to like that. I like ribs and pretty girls, right? We all have fun. And the function of the Pride Parade, because it actually does serve an important societal function in its best intentions. It was, hey, here's the Jewish gay community, and we're marching. Here's the Christian gay community. Here's atheist gays, and we're out. Here's the firemen gay community. Right, firemen float. Here's the police. Right, we are gay now. Because back in the day, you could not be openly gay. Now it's a problem. Right, and this is one of the functions of Pride, is to say we are no longer in those days. Right, now I can be open. Right, because you used to be able to, you would have lost jobs. You would have lost relationships if you were openly gay back in the 60s. Okay, that's not good. And it is good to have the Gay Pride Parade so people can say, hey, now look, we're open, we're together. You know, this is about gay people being visible, and we're celebrating that. That is a perfectly normal function in society, and it serves a good function when, you know, organizations like LGBT Tory and gay liberals and gay NDP and gay cops and gay firemen and gay whatever can all get together and we just have a good time and everyone's openly gay. No one had a problem with it. The real problem came, thank you Black Lives Matter Toronto, the most useless organization in the world, when they shut down the Pride Parade and say, no more cops. We can't have cops because there's a genocide of black trans women from the cops. The year they declared that, there were 22 police shootings in the country. None of them were black transgender women. The majority of them were white men who were killed in active shootouts with the police. 22 across all of Canada that year. 22 in total, most of them white men killed in the middle of shootouts with police. Like, yeah, when Tim Smith in PEI is, like, I doubt it's a black trans woman. But nonetheless, this was about Southeast Asian gays not being visible enough and white power and blah, blah, blah. So this polluted Gay Pride Parade. This means it wasn't about what it was originally about. It no longer served its function in society. Instead of becoming a tool that united everyone and just said, hey, this is homosexuality being openly visible, right, with no political agenda, it said, no, 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 this is now a political agenda, right? We're now gays against cops, right? Then it forced people to sort of take a stance on the Pride Parade. Then Trump got elected, and a bunch of California Pride Parades said, this is now a resistance event. We're not letting gay conservatives march. Right? So then the Gay Pride Parade was no longer about what it used to be about. Because Gay Pride Parade in 2010 was a good unifying function, right? Brought people all different types together. Let's have fun. There's ribs and some gross naked old dudes, and there's a hot girl with her clothes off. Nice. Right? That's what people would go for. But then people started bringing their kids, like small kids, to the Gay Pride Parade, where old men were like dressed up in leather, swinging their dicks around. And I was like, this is totally fine. It's not. Right? Then there was a lot of exploitation of child sexuality there. And then it doubled down. So it then became a political function. And of course, when things become political, people start to get heated and disagree. Right? That's what the show is. I accept that. This is political. People send me really nice messages. Say, keep it up. I love what you're doing. Keep doing it. It's great. Canada needs this. Other people absolutely hate me. And they don't hate me or love me. It's more my views. I give you conservative viewpoints in Canada. Conservative Canadians tend to like that. They tend to like, or I think they mistake my opinions for me and give me more adoration than I deserve as a human. The converse is true for the people who dislike me. They hate me a lot more than they really should, and they really just dislike my opinions. But that's politics. I made my peace with that. I said I don't hold that against anyone. I made this bet. I lie in it. But the Gay Pride Parade is not doing that. It is becoming overtly political, and then how people now disagree with our politics, they must hate gays. No. Right? It's like saying if you disagree with my views on the carbon tax, you're anti-Semitic. That would be ridiculous. So this is how you get the Straight Pride Parade. Because once the Gay Pride Parade is no longer about unity and gay people being out about in society in a way that is just, recognized and there, and we celebrate that, once it becomes about politics, you're of course going to get a converse political reaction to that, which is it ends up being straight pride, which is a silly parade. We don't need it. But the reason you're going to get straight pride parades is because this is people, and this is the backlash to the political ideology being pushed on them from the gay pride parade, which was not there 10 years ago. That's the problem. So that's what the straight pride parade is. That's where it's coming from. And this is why people shouldn't be surprised it's there, because gay pride has gotten overtly political, and it shouldn't be. All right, so we'll finish off on a rant about bomb threats, because there's some bomb threats at school. But first, like the video, share the video, like the page. Every time you fail to like this page, Justin Trudeau gets a vote. I don't know, I should have said something sillier, but I can't think of anything. So we'll get into bomb threats because there's something. Now, I have some controversial views on bomb threats. Now, take this with a grain of salt because I can get a bit silly here, but this is true. So, some of you might know, some of you don't know. I went to Jewish day school as a kid. Okay, it's like a regular school. If you don't know how it works, half the day is in English. That's reasonable. You have to pay attention there. The other half of the day would be in Hebrew. So they just shipped in random Israeli women to yell at me for 3 hours. That's how it goes. Now, it has some upsides. The good part about Jewish day school is there's a lot of Jewish holidays, which means a lot of time off. You get time off because there's Passover, Hanukkah, Shmuach, Bruach, all your favorites. My favorite holiday as a kid were bomb threats. Now, hear me out. This is how they work. So, if you go to a Jewish day school back in the day, eventually, once a year, maybe twice if you're lucky, someone would call up your school and say, hey, this is the Jewish day school? Yep, I'm going to kill everyone, there's a bomb. Bye. Be like, cool. Now, how would this work? In the Jewish day school, we had an interesting system. There would be a principal. She was never there because she was a principal of 3 different schools. Then there's vice principal, head of English, who did stuff, and then the vice principal, who was head of Hebrew, Mr. Sabari. Now, at my school, how did we get to Mr. Sabari? Basically, Mr. Sabari was a Jew they found in Morocco, and they figured, they don't like Jews in Morocco, so he must have been pretty wily to get out of there. Let's bring him to Canada, put him in charge of all these Israelis. What could go wrong? Now, the thing about Mr. Sabari is he's from Morocco, which is a French-Arabic country. None of those languages are English or even Hebrew. So they took someone out of Africa with the inability to speak English or Hebrew, put him in charge of everyone, figured, all right, we have someone in charge of everyone who knows how to communicate with no one, what could go wrong? Wasn't the most productive thing. He basically would just yell, change his tone and inflection, and change languages in between sentences. So he had nothing to do all day. Which means whenever there'd be a bomb threat, it was Mr. Sabari's job to go classroom to classroom to let you know what's going on. So someone calls the school, we're going to kill all the Jews. They'd be like, cool, send in Sabari. So you'd just be in the middle of social studies or something, then Sabari would barge to the classroom and go, okay, kids, maybe what do is, we go church, we go street, maybe, okay, don't worry, these not drill is drill. And we'd just be looking around like, yay, bomb threat, sweet. We go across the street, hang out at the church, be like, oh, sweet. I really hope they blow up the school this year. Because there's no homework. Right? No homework on a bomb threat day. You got to leave your bags in class. It was amazing. Right? It was all a good time. It was my favorite holiday. But the terrible thing is, you know what happened? 9/11 happened. And then after 9/11, no more bomb threats. What the fuck, Muslims? That was my favorite day of school. It was like surprise Christmas. Ruining a proud tradition of Christian people threatening to kill Jewish kids. It's a shame. Now, 9/11 was also very interesting at United Synagogue Day School. So, okay, here's the story of 9/11 from my perspective. You probably know the regular story of 9/11, right? You have planes, towers, Allahu Akbar, kaboom. So the school looks at it and says, oh my God, the Americans are under attack. This has changed the world forever. How do we tell the kids? Send in Sabari. So I'm in the 5th grade. We're in class, and then all of a sudden, Mr. Sabari comes in. Kids, okay, we have 2 planes. We have 2 planes and pilots, but maybe no pilots. Go and it's in New York. Hey, it's it. And then okay, and then they go and is okay, maybe. Drops the mic, walks out of class. That's how 9/11 was explained to a group of 10-year-olds. So we're just sitting there like, okay, occasionally Sabari comes in and says random things, whatever. We just move on with our day. But then parents start coming to school and pulling their kids out of class. So like more and more kids getting pulled out. There's a lot of mass confusion. No one really knows what's going on. So the school running realizes, okay, no one really knows what's going on. We need to clear everything up. So they call everyone in for a surprise assembly. We all get into the gym. We get into the assembly hall. They get everyone, grades 1 through 8, seated down. And then they brought on Mr. Sabari for 20 more minutes of and then and it was the silliest 9/11 ever. And that's how 9/11 happened. So this is why I don't take bomb threats as seriously as other people do when there are bomb threats on the school, because in my experience, who's lived through double-digit bomb threats, when terrorists want to kill you, they use bombs and they bomb you. When people want to be dicks and like scare you, they do bomb threats. If you're actually going to bomb someone, you don't say, hey, there's a bomb. So when a bunch of post-secondary schools are bomb threatened during exam season, you probably say, that might be someone trying to get out of exams, and it kind of brought it back a bit of nostalgia on my part because I missed those bomb threats. Okay. That is the end of our show. Do not report me to CSIS or else I'll be very disappointed with you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, whatever it is on YouTube or Facebook, you have to click the like button or else I curse you and your family. No, that's mean. Awab curses you and your family. Awab, don't do that. But he will. I heard his great-grandmother's a witch. Now, every Wednesday night, 6 p.m., we do this on Tag TV until I eventually get arrested for hate speech or something ridiculous. So please join us, 6 p.m., same bat time, same bat place. See you next week.